Hi. So this is pretty much how you set up a basic multiplayer scenario with what's necessary to show. Starting off is to select a character that you'd like to play as a playable slot. So we will be using, for example, 3 riflemen, which we will place right over here. 1, 2, and 3. Now notice that after the first character that you place, which by default will be the player character, although it's not necessary, or if there more or less no need to actually uncheck it so that you want it to be a playable slot, it'll by default turn into a playable slot if you set this to multiplayer. But besides that, the other characters that you place that you want to turn into playable slots to play as, by default do not have a purple ring to signify that these are playable. So in order to get this taken care of, either you manually double click on each of them, or to save time, you select all the characters you want to highlight, right mouse button, click on attributes, and then check mark the playable box. And there you go. Now, if we go to attributes, we'll go over 2 notable things. More likely 3, actually. Starting off with general. This is where you find the independent sides allegiance, i.e. if they are friendly or hostile to either blue for or op for at the same time, or neither. The handshake signifies friendly relations, the swords signify hostile relations. Click OK once you've decided to which side does independent want to be friendly or hostile to. Going back to attributes yet again, we have the environment section. Over here shows the time of day that you could adjust, with the little slivers of grey turning more darker to black, signifying when the day becomes, sunsets, evenings, sunsets, sunrises, that type of nonsense. The particular year, month, and day. Over here is overcast. In a nutshell, it's how much cloud cover do you want. Overcast forecast is when, or more or less the forecasted cloud cover that will eventually take place after the initial start of the game. So if the overcast starts at 0% and you set it at, let's say, 50% for overcast forecast, at some time after the scenario has started, it will get to 50% overcast in terms of cloud coverage. Fog start is basically how much fog initially in the area or map that you want to cover. Decay is how much of that fog decays. And base altitude of fog layer above sea level. Fog forecasted is the same thing as mentioned with overcast forecast. It's basically the prediction for what type of fog amount will be seen in the future. And this is pretty much the same thing with other types of environmental weather, such as rain, lightning, waves, and wind. And then finally, multiplayer. Over here, we have a few notable things that we should take care of. First one is enable AI. If you have a multiplayer scenario with playable slots and you have enable AI checkmarked, which will be this: all playable characters are created at the scenario start, controlled by AI. Upon joining, a player takes control of an existing character. When AI is disabled, new character is created for each connecting player. It would be recommended to disable this so that you do not want to have AI taking over these playable slots. Now respawn. Be sure to select it on respawn on custom position, which allows you to choose multiple spawn points based on where they have been placed in the scenario or by the Zeus. This is one of the more popular forms of spawning, and it would be a good recommendation to start with. Another thing to note is that you be sure to checkmark the select respawn position. This allows you to select which respawn position you want to spawn in. Respawn delay is how long does it take after death for you to spawn in as a form of delay. It would be recommended to put in any assortment of time. 5 seconds is good enough. As a result, due to the fact that there is some sort of issue I have seen prior to this, where if you do not put any delay for the respawn, it may bug your spawnability, i.e. you may not be able to spawn as a result. Now, revives. Unless if you are using the Ace mod, this is not necessary to cover. But besides that, for people who do not use Ace, if you'd like to pretty much handle reviving and such like that, we'll discuss it. Revive mode, recommended for all players to enable, although you could choose for specific type of people to be able to revive, which will go to the acquired trait, or required trait, which by default will be Medic. That is the required trait that will allow a certain individual to revive others. Required items, such as the Medikit, First Aid Kit, and Medikit, are items that you'd wish to be used to revive a player. I personally stick with both the First Aid Kit and Medikit. Revive duration. How long does it take for a player to revive a downed individual? 6 seconds is the default time. I like to put it at 30 seconds on average. Medic speed multiplier. It's a times speed boost for medics to revive an individual compared to non-medics. So by default it's set to 2 times. So it would take 15 seconds instead of the 30 seconds that I have set here for the medic to revive a downed individual. And the incapacitation mode is basically controls the level of simulation involved in triggering incapacitation. I.e. you get shot, you go down, but you still live. And it takes and requires somebody else to get you up. Basic, on default, is the most simplest form of incapacitation. I.e. regardless of where you get shot at, by whatever, explosions, bullets, or a direct hit from an artillery shell, or tank round, you will go down instead of die. If you wanted to be a bit more realistic with the possibilities of getting killed, realistically speaking, it would be recommended to move to the advanced section, which would be the extensive wounds will kill players instantly. Bleed out duration is basically how long till the person who has been downed will bleed out. You can change how long you want it to be based off the timer that you could select here. After that, we can move on to additional modules to take note on. So under systems, modules, all the way down here for Zeus, we will start with a game master. This allows the selected person to become a Zeus. Now, how do you make a specific role or slot that is playable out of the 3 become a Zeus? What you do is select your character, that you wish to pick as the Zeus, and then head over to the variable name checkbox. In here, you type in the name, that is the variable name, so that it would correspond with the owner checkbox, or owner little name that you could put in for the module. So over here you type in your name, click OK, double click on Game Master, and then for the owner section type in that exact variable name so that the module recognizes that specific playable slot as the Zeus slot. Now additionally, it would be recommended to have all add-ons, including unofficial ones, to be checked in here as well, as it will include mods that are either not totally finished, but have a good chunk of content that is workable and functional that you'd like to use. Once you're done with that, click OK, and we can move on to the next part, that is on the multiplayer, respawn position, and the vehicle respawn. Now for respawn position, you place it wherever you like, and wherever the module for respawn position is placed is the exact position that the player will spawn. Now double click on respawn position, and over here we have to choose which side will the respawn position include to spawn in. Now you have a limited amount of choices, but for the people who want to play as a specific faction of a specific side, it would be recommended to make sure that's aligned with the module. i.e., if your faction is blue for, make sure that the respawn position is set to blue for the side, and you should be good. Once you're done with that, click OK. Vehicle respawn is a module that allows for vehicles to respawn after destruction. So what you do here is, for example, we will use a car, i.e. this hunter. Place it wherever you'd like and sync it up via right click on the item, connect, sync to, and then sync to the module. Once you're done with that, double click on the module and you have a few options here. The delay is a delay in seconds before the vehicle is respawned. So for this example, let's put in 600 seconds, which is roughly speaking 10 minutes. Deserted distance is when the vehicle is abandoned, force respawn after no player is in the given distance in meters, ignored when the field is left blank. Based off the distance in when the vehicle is left behind in meters, it will respawn to its original position. Tickets is the number of respawn tickets. How many times can the vehicle respawn? Position by default will be the starting position, which is where the vehicle was placed in Eden. That will serve as to where the vehicle will spawn in and respawn. You could choose it to where it was destroyed, or have a specific respawn marker selected for where you want this vehicle to spawn from, or respawn. Another thing to note, notification pretty much when enabled will tell you when the vehicle has respawned. Following that, we will continue with an additional module concerning, if I am checking this correctly, if there is what else to check, a logic entity. If we click here, under Systems, Logic Entities, and Game Logic, we have an additional feature that would be quite beneficial for many people who are searching for this in regards to view distance for multiplayer scenarios. By default, without this game logic and the specific script to be typed in, the default view distance for a multiplayer server will automatically be about 500 meters or half a kilometer. To which, although in single player for a scenario like this, it's not really an issue due to the fact that the player's view distance will be the default view distance, but in multiplayer it will by default be 500 meters. To not have this issue, you place in your game logic, double click it, and then type in the following script. That is set view distance, set view distance. Following that, you put in a number to determine in meters how far are you going to see in terms of view distance. For example, 5,000 meters for 5 kilometers. This is very useful to increase the multiplayer experience, especially being able to see much farther, allowing players in multiplayer games to actually fly and not be blind, and other sorts of funness. Once you're done with that, that should concern all main important and extremely basic ways of setting up a simple multiplayer game. Via setting up the playable slots, a respawn position, a Zeus module for the selected character, a vehicle respawn with the vehicles synced up, and of course the game logic entity that you could use to increase the distance that you could use for your view distance in game. That should concern so far the important things about setting up a very basic multiplayer game.